12, moderate rain.
You're welcome. And next up, we have Jenna Lee, the lead media lab specialist for New York Public Library. Jenna, welcome to all of it.
Thank you.
So where is the NYPL's recording studio and how does it work?
Well, we actually have a couple of different recording studios at the New York Public Library. Our main location is Studio 40, which is at the newly renovated Mid-Manhattan branch on 40th Street and 5th Avenue, right across from the Lions building. But we also have a couple other studios up in the Bronx. We have an Allerton Multimedia Studio and the Tremont Sound Lab at Allerton and Tremont branches at the for adults, and then we also have some teen recording studios. We have a studio downstairs at the Mid-Manhattan Library, which is for folks who are ages 13 to 19. And we have some Best Buy Teen Centers, which are located at Grand Concourse, Parkchester, and Mott Haven. And actually, I'm glad Christine mentioned the Brooklyn Lending Program, because we have a couple of our students coming in with musical instruments that they rented from Brooklyn Public Library, and they're using them on projects over here. So that's been fun to see that collaboration going on.
That's great. And all of these different spaces, are they all equipped similarly? Are there specific differences, like in the teen recording spaces? Is there any special equipment there?
Yeah, so the two recording studios at the Mid-Manhattan Library are probably our largest studios. We have a lot of industry quality gear. We're mostly in the box studio, but we also have outboard gear like LA2A 1176 for compression, and a patch bay to help folks figure out signal flow in the studio in a good learning environment. We run UAD console and Avid Pro Tools, as well as Ableton and Logic Pro. So a lot of studio quality microphones, UAD7, TLM 102, stuff like that. So really wonderful microphones and pieces of equipment here available at the central branches, as well as we have workstations.
Apparently completely unfamiliar with the concept of using this lane to match speeds with that of the highway.
Has access to various software, including Logic Pro, the Adobe Creative Suite, Ableton Pro Tools,
wow. So
DaVinci Resolve.
That's a really well-stocked set of spaces there. If somebody's
Okay. With the conditions on the road now, I would say these are borderline grey out conditions, in that it doesn't take long before a car ahead of me is obscured by the spray such that you really can't tell it's there. So this is roughly as dangerous, I'm going to say, as like covering snow or something like that.
Sound checks from basically zero to get a good solid recording, whether that's on your own with gear that you have or gear that you borrow from us, as well as in the studio spaces. We do an orientation class to the studio space. We teach you how all the equipment works. If you're curious about all that mashup of letters and numbers and what it does and how it can help you make your song sound better, or how it can help you acclimate to a studio atmosphere if you're interested in going into that more professionally. We have tons of classes that we offer online and in person, both at Manhattan branch for teens, for adults. We also have Creative Media Open Lab, so if you're coming in and you're in the middle of your project and you're not really sure what the next step is, you can talk to us and consult with us. We have folks who can come one-on-one and help. We also have trained up a cohort of volunteers, so these are folks who came in a couple years ago and they've been training with us for a while, and they learned some of the lingo, picked up some of the workflows, and they are giving back to their community as well, and they are helping facilitate studio sessions alongside us and sort of getting this apprenticeship training, and will really help you navigate no matter what level you come in at. So even if you don't end up in a studio space with us, if you want to come to our classes, even from the comfort of your own home, we have a lot of different things that we could go over, including how to pick the right microphone for your sound, or basics in mixing using all sorts of professional DAWs and free digital audio workstations, how to produce a beat using this various free or paid-for software, how to edit your videos, how to start a podcast A to Z.
Oh wow, that's great. So, and those folks are kind of paying it forward, right? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. Our interns, well, they're not interns, our volunteer program. We have students ages 25 to 72 who are volunteering and giving back to their community. It's a really beautiful, multi-generational, creative space, and a lot of really invested folks.
So how would folks go and sign up for those spaces among many of the places that you mentioned? Is there like a central resource folks can go to online maybe?
Sure. Our main website is nypl.org for adult services. If you go to nypl.org/computers, you'll be able to find all of our classes as well as our information on the recording studios, what kind of stuff we have going on there. And if you're looking for teen spaces, you can go to nypl.org/spotlight teen center teen-center, and you will be able to find resources on the various teen locations that we have for our branches.
Thank you so much. Jenna Lee is the lead media lab specialist for the New York Public Library. Jenna, thank you so much for joining. And lastly, thank you. And lastly, we're joined by Brendan Kohler, who's the marketing manager of Verso Studios. That's the recording studio for the Westport Public Library in Connecticut. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Hey, lastly but not leastly, how you doing?
Lastly but not leastly, saving among the best for last, I would say. Everyone's great. So great to have you. Listeners can record, edit, mix, and master their song at Verso Studios all for free. Can you tell me, Brendan, how Verso Studios fits into the umbrella of the Westport Public Library?
Sure. Here at the Westport Library, it's like a spaceship. We have Verso Studios really is our production resource and media hub. So we have a venue space, where you can have concerts and film screenings. We have a 3 post-production stations here where you can edit and mix your songs and edit and mix movies and films and make illustrations and designs. And we also have a recording studio with an SSL board that was designed by Rob Forboni, who famously designed Keith Richards' studio and Bob Dylan and the band studio in LA. So not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all. And similar thing that I was asking Jenna, are there experts available to help somebody use the studio and edit audio if they're not super familiar?
We're very high in demand and popular, but yes, me and 2 other professionals are kind of roaming the building during certain hours to assist.
Great. And who's it open to? Do you have to be a Connecticut resident?
You don't even need to have a library card necessarily. I don't think you need to be a Connecticut resident. I think we'll kind of accept anyone that comes in that is interested. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. And you also have some exciting programming coming up at the library starting tomorrow. It's called Verso Fest. That's a very cool name. Before we go, do you want to talk about what Verso Fest is and who's involved?
Absolutely. Verso Fest, April 3rd through the 7th. That's 5 days of music, media, and creativity. Tomorrow we're having a talk with Chuck D. Then the Lemon Twigs are coming, Spin Doctors, and then Saturday and Sunday is like a full-on conference with a record fair, David Bowie Diamond Dogs exhibit, Tony Visconti will be talking with Paul Cavalcante, John Densmore, Audrey Golden, who just wrote Women at Factory Records. There really is something for everyone, so I encourage everyone to go to westportlibrary.org/VersoFest, and if you're interested in Verso Studios, that's westportlibrary.org/Verso.
And we want to shout out Lemon Twig.
That car has no lights on. And this truck also has no lights on. In their defence, they're both from out of state, so they may or may not know that New Jersey has a law mandating lights on when there is precipitation. But contrary to that sentiment, it's written fucking everywhere. Wipers on, lights on.
ebpl.org to find out more. That's EBPL. And Newark residents can check out the Newark Public Library and their Makerspace studio, featuring an audio booth with Pro Tools, Audacity, other editing software for audio. For more info there, go to made.npl.com. And you can also find links to all these resources and more on our own website at all of it, along with instructions on how to participate, how to stream songs from our special guest contributors like They Might Be Giants, who we just heard in the last segment. So to find out all of that, go to wnyc.org/public song project. Listen, now is your time to get involved and for a chance to be featured on WNYC and alongside artists like the ones you've heard so far, plus Rhiannon Giddens, Bella Fleck, Roseanne Cash, and many more. This is a party. We want you to be a part of it. Submissions are due May 12th. Again, the website, wnyc.org/public song project. You can get all the info there. We're so excited to hear your songs. The Women's Division I NCAA basketball tournament has perhaps never been this star-studded, and now we're heading into the Final Four, with South Carolina facing NC State and UConn against Iowa on Friday night. Hall of Fame coach and ESPN analyst Carolyn Peck joins us to preview the rest of the competition and recap the highlights.
WNYC is supported by Carnegie Hall, presenting the Philadelphia Orchestra led by Yannick Messé-Seguin, performing selections from Alma Mahler Z Van Leiter with mezzo-soprano Karen Cargill and Mahler Symphony No. 7. April 12th, carnegiehall.org. Foreman School, a Connecticut co-ed college prep school dedicated to empowering students with language-based learning differences and executive function deficits, hosting an open house on Friday, April 19th. Information at foremanschool.org. WNYC's health coverage is supported by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, bridging science and the arts by supporting plays like Nelson Diaz Marcano's Las Borinqueñas, opening at the Ensemble Studio Theater on April 3rd. More at sloan.org.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the American way. So how's it going? Take a look at the latest data about Americans' happiness compared to peers in other countries, and the takeaway is we're unhappier than ever. And this sharp drop in happiness comes largely from younger Americans. What's causing that? And how can we think about happiness differently? That's next time on 1A. Weekdays at 3 on 93.9 FM, AM 820, or live stream it at WNYC.org.
WNYC, independent journalism for the public interest. 93.9 FM and AM 820, NPR News and the New York Conversation.
This is all of it on WNYC. I'm Kushan Avidar. The 2024 Women's NCAA Basketball Tournament now has a Final Four after two high-profile games last night that completed the Elite Eight. Let me tell you, it was a big one. Caitlin Clark and Iowa defeated LSU, and UConn upset USC. Two huge games. So now we look ahead to this Friday. South Carolina, undefeated, #1 seed, takes on 3rd seed NC State, the Wolfpack, and Iowa will take on UConn, vying for a spot in that championship game on Sunday. Everyone, this has been a year for college basketball. It's kind of hard to overstate this. The women's tournament feels especially spectacular and star-studded. Players like Caitlin Clark at Iowa, Juju Watkins at USC, Paige Beckers from UConn, and Angel Reese at LSU. They're dropping big numbers and showing out for their teams. And hey, even if South Carolina is the deserved favorite, it really feels like any team can win. And here's something special. With us now to recap the madness so far and preview the Final Four, which is taking place this Friday night on ESPN, we've got Carolyn Peck. She's a Hall of Fame coach who won the tournament in 1999, and now she's an ESPN analyst and commentator who's covering the women's tournament. Carolyn, hi, welcome to WNYC.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And listeners, we want to hear from you too. Have you been watching this year's NCAA women's basketball tournament? What have been your impressions? Any favorite moments or upsets? Call or text us now. The number is 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. You can also hit us up on social. Our handle is @allofitWNYC. We're on Instagram. We're on X. Do you have a favorite team you're rooting for? Favorite player? Have you found yourself tuning in to watch Caitlin Clark or South Carolina? Give us a call, 212-433-9692. Okay, so Carolyn got asked, was basketball playing on every TV in your house last night?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I didn't want to leave the room and miss anything. So, yeah, they were two great basketball games last night.
Let's start with last night's action with LSU and Iowa. It's the matchup everyone had been looking forward to, which interestingly for listeners, it was a rematch of last year's final. Iowa won last night thanks to a 41-point and 12-assist night from star Caitlin Clark. But LSU fought hard and the game was close. Angel Reese was great. How did Iowa get the edge last night, do you think?
I think Iowa had balanced scoring. Yeah, Caitlin Clark got 41, but the contribution she got from Kate Martin, her 21 points, and then Sydney Halter, who has stepped in the absence of Molly Davis, who got hurt the last game of the regular season. She has filled in spectacularly, and so having her ability to make shots and the conditioning of Iowa has been so impressive of how they run like a soccer team. They don't seem to show any sign of fatigue.
Is that, as a coach, when you think about conditioning as a major part, how do you balance conditioning with, technical areas? How much effort do you think it required from the coaching staff to figure out that we're going to double down on conditioning this year?
Well, I think that's something that you work on back in the summer and in October in the preseason, of understanding the kind of condition you've got to be in March and April. And I think that then you have to manage what you're building up to as much as you get into conference play. And then when you need to start tapering so that you get the appropriate rest so that you're ready to come game time. Because you look at Caitlin Clark and Gabby Marshall, they played 40 minutes last night. Kate Martin went 38. And Afalter went 37. They did not look fatigued for 1 second.
Let's talk about Caitlin Clark, Iowa star. She's the highest scoring Division I basketball player in history for both men and women, and we saw just how good she was last night. She, like we both mentioned, accounted for a majority of her team's points. Describe her to me as a player, and especially from a coach's perspective. What's it like to be a player in Caitlin's position with so much talent and so much pressure? And how do you think, as a coach, you support a player like that and help them grow?
The number one thing that a coach needs to see in order to support a player like Caitlin Clark is to see how much work she puts in. And Caitlin Clark is a tireless and I think perfectionist in really honing her craft, working on her game. She's constantly trying to get better, and you've seen that over the 4 years of her career. And in talking to Lisa Bluter, I said, how do you get comfortable with a player coming across half court and pulling the trigger? And she said she could not say that she was comfortable with that at first in her freshman season, but when she saw how accurate Caitlin was, then as her career moved on, she had to let her go. And that doesn't just happen. You have to see the work that players put in, and I think that has developed a lot of confidence that Lisa Bluter has in Caitlin Clark, and the confidence she has with the ball in her hand. Her passing, Caitlin Clark's passing this year has been tremendous as well.
I also hear you refer to this idea of trust, I guess, between both player and coach, whether it's taking it from far out or from understanding how you fit into the team. Just want to put a point on that. It sounds like trust is a really big part of making that work.
It is huge. The trust has to be that when you give the license as a coach to a player like Caitlin Clark, I'm going to let you make some decisions,
I'm going to let you run the team because as a coach, I can't be on the floor. And when you put the ball in the hands of a player that you trust, that you know is understanding what you want to happen on the floor and is willing to carry that out on the floor, that's huge in the success of how your program is going to continue.
We're talking to Carolyn Peck, the Hall of Fame coach and ESPN analyst and commentator. She's been covering this year's women's NCAA tournament. And listeners, we're recapping the weekend's action and previewing the Final Four, which is taking place this Friday night on ESPN. We would love your calls. If you've been watching this year's NCAA women's basketball tournament, what have been your impressions? Any favorite moments or surprises? Do you have a team you're rooting for or a favorite player? Give us a call. We're at 212-433-WNYC. It's 212-433-9692. You can also text us at that number. If you have a question for Carolyn Peck, give us a call as well. 212-433-WNYC. All right, let's talk about UConn and USC. It's the other game that was on a lot of people's minds. It was very intense. Paige Beckers led UConn to an upset win over the University of Southern California Trojans. They were led by freshman phenom Juju Watkins. Carolyn, what did you make of last night's game?
That Paige Beckers is a warrior. She wasn't going to allow her team to lose. She and Aaliyah Edwards, Nika Mule, these are players that have been there